My name is Ben Marcus. I want to welcome you to this third in our series of tech talks about the future of sustainable transportation here in Santa Monica. I'm really pleased to have Kartik joining us today. Kartik is with Wing, which is Google's parent company, Alphabet's subsidiary, doing drone delivery, which you'll learn more about in a moment. And a big thanks to Nicole from Wing, who's also here and helped set this up, and Vanessa from the Pilot Outfitters shop, who's helped to set this up as well. Before we get started, I just wanted to sort of share a little bit about the history of Santa Monica Airport. For those of you who aren't familiar with this place, it has a really storied history as the aviation innovation epicenter of the last century, with Donald Douglas having founded the Douglas Aircraft Company here in 1917. This is the 100th anniversary of the first flights around the world that were made in 1924 by the Douglas World Cruisers, which took off from Santa Monica Airport. So really a momentous year for all of us who live here in Santa Monica to celebrate this incredible heritage that we have, really connecting the world with airplanes. And so we're really excited to present these tech talks to kind of share what the future holds for aviation. And drone delivery is one of those aspects that we think is really exciting. So we couldn't be more happy to have Kartik here to talk about that. A little later today, you all may know that the Santa Monica City is setting off on a sort of listening tour with the community to ask what you all think should be here at Santa Monica Airport in the future. That starts at 11 a.m. at Clover Park, so really encourage you to come and participate in that process. And there will be other opportunities in the next 3-4 weeks as well if you can't make it this afternoon. There's some more information on that on the table there. So without further ado, let's have a seat. And yeah, again, if you have any trouble hearing us, please let us know. We have this speaker, so we can go from there. So Kartik, maybe start by telling us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up at Wing?
Cool. Thanks, Ben. Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me on the back. My name is Kartik Balasubramanian. I joined Wing about a decade ago. Or 8 years ago. The Wing's been around for a decade. Basically, this is something that I've always wanted to be a part of. So growing up, I wanted to be a pilot, never got a chance actually to be a pilot. And so this is an interesting way of being connected to aviation and being part of something that actually helps the community get better. So currently, I manage the hardware engineering, manufacturing, and supply chain teams at Wing. And during the course of 8 years, I've been able to do multiple roles at Wing, giving me an understanding of the full ecosystem of how a drone delivery system could work and could be helpful for a community like yours.
Great, thank you. And tell us a little bit about Wing, maybe just the origin story, how Wing got started, and how you've progressed a bit and what you're doing today.
Yeah, certainly. I think Wing was part of what Google would call as an incubation arm, so it's part of Google X. And so basically it started about 10 years ago with this idea of transporting defibrillators for emergency services. And so this is something that kind of started there, and the first few years were just understanding, can we actually do it? Do we have the tech to do it? Can we actually build a system that is reliable, capable, and safe for us to be flying over people to do this work? So like the first half of our journey towards being here is just getting the tech ready. The second half is really talking with regulators and partners and communities to say, okay, hey, we've got a system that works. We think it'll be very helpful for you guys, and seeing how that actually works in the day-to-day use cases that we've seen work so well so far. So that's generally how we've started, and we started as like very small group of people that were really focused on getting something off the ground to something that is now a company that is able to deliver in 3 continents and has done about 350,000 deliveries.
That's incredible. That's a huge number, 350,000 deliveries. How many are you doing so every day, let's say, these days?
I think right now we're since last year, we've been focused back in the U.S. And in the U.S., we're doing somewhere about 130 to 150 deliveries a day, and primarily in Dallas with our partner Walmart.
Right. Yeah, it's really exciting. I was sharing with Kartik earlier that I was at dinner a few weeks ago with a friend of mine that lives in Dallas. Doesn't care about drones. It's just happens to live in Dallas, and he lives in their service area, and he's been getting a delivery almost every day. And he showed me a video of his daughter playing in the front yard while the wing drone is delivering a package, and she didn't even like look up to see the thing. It had become so routine already that it's no longer a novelty. It's pretty cool. So like give us some examples of some of the common things that people order with Wing.
Yeah, I think I guess we can do a quick poll. What do you guys think? What do you guys think people order from a Walmart with their drones? Toilet paper? That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, anything else? Any more guesses? Coffee. Well, coffee is one of the biggest sellers in Australia. That's my dream. If I could ever get drone delivery services, wake up in the morning, stumble downstairs to your backyard, and have a piping hot cup of coffee available for you. Medicine, yeah, medicine. Medicine is something that we are, we did in Australia for sure, but RX is something that we're working towards.
Does that require some other regulatory approvals here?
Correct, yes. I think we require some of the regulatory approvals. But Red Bull, if you could guess it, is the number one seller at this point, and the drink Red Bull is number one seller, followed by a bunch of candies. So I think, generally speaking, this is a service that is available to people that want things that they feel like they need to have it at that moment, and they've forgotten something, they can't get it. They're able to go out and order something that arrives for them. So, for example, we guarantee 30-minute delivery or less at this moment in Walmart, but typically the delivery takes about 5 to 7 minutes to get to you.
That's from the time you order until it shows up.
Right. So
5 to 7 minutes.
Correct. I mean, recently we launched DoorDash service with Wendy's in Virginia, and a person ordered a drone delivery service at 11:22. The order was received at 11:25, and they had their package in hand at 11:28.
Wow.
So that's kind of how this works, and the beauty of it is that the drones don't have to face traffic like our cars in our normal days, and so they are they fly the most efficient route to get to the positions.
Efficiency is really interesting. I mean, think about today if I order some food on Uber Eats or something, right? It's being delivered to me with like a big car, a 3,000-pound car, and I might get like a 1-pound burrito. How heavy is this drone?
Yeah, it's about 10 pounds, and so like this is our chance to right size a payload that we carry that is kilo and a half to something that is few times bigger and not a 2-ton car. And that's certainly something that we've been focused on at Wing, is how do we get efficiency, how do we get this to be a preferred service for everybody, because it has to be economical for people to order this, and certainly has to take sustainability into considerations by taking cars off the road for things that you would normally drive a car to a Home Depot to get a tool or a part. You could use the drone service to enable that for you.
Yeah. So no gas, very little energy. I guess it's only 10 pounds.
Correct.
And all electric. What does it cost for somebody to get a delivery?
Yeah, I think certainly we want this cost to be something that people would order again, right? So I'm going to ask the room again. How much will you pay for a delivery at this moment? $3.99. $5. $10. I mean, we want to be in those ranges, right? So I think really for us, ultimately, we want to be in the ranges where people feel that this is value to them, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't, the value proposition won't meet what the customers are willing to take on. So I think that'll be our idea, is like getting to a point where there's
do you have a unit economics, like per ounce of weight the product must cost XYZ to have return? Like, for example, if you do a Hermes Birkin bag, that would be very profitable, but maybe something like a bolt from a hardware store, not so profitable.
Well, I mean, I think it is not necessarily our service is not necessarily tied to the package revenue, right? So our value comes from the happiness we provide you guys. And so it's just not necessarily what we carry, it's the urgency of what you might need at that time. That's the value proposition.
That's cool. So we talked a little bit about environmental sustainability and cost, and what about noise? I mean, how do neighbors feel about how this thing sounds?
Yeah, I think that is something that we worry and obsess about is how do we make sure this gets integrated into the community. We've been operating in 3 continents over the last 4 years. We've probably received a handful of noise complaints. And noise is a couple things, and we had to learn this with the community because there's 2 ways of noise. And generally, you think about drone noise as the noise that the drone makes when it takes off. And then, that noise happens at a nest location or when it delivers at somebody's home or their destination zone. But interestingly, what we found out is that if you fly thousands of drones over people's houses, you're gonna, the flight path is going to be on top of the houses, so people might hear it. So we designed this drone specifically with longer wings, so it'll fly slower, and it's plus or minus 40 decibels. So you won't hear it inside the home. So if we flew over the
Like a passing car.
you wouldn't even hear that noise. Like, it won't even
Less than a passing car.
Less than a passing car. Yep, correct. Cool. So Ben, I think it's really interesting. When Ben and I initially talked about this opportunity, I learned that Ben is a pilot, and half of Wing is made up of pilots, right? So it's just very interesting and common spot for us to talk about. And where does your passion for aviation come from? Where's that start from?
Yeah, well, I grew up right here in Santa Monica, just next to Clover Park, and my parents could care less about airplanes. But I did because I grew up right next to the airport. So just watching airplanes, and I used to hang onto the chain link fence for hours on end, watching airplanes taking off and landing until my mom would say, "Hey, come home for dinner. It's time for dinner." And I remember in Clover Park, I would speak to pilots through the fence. There were a couple of people there that were building airplanes, and I got to talk to them and get to know them, and it was just very inspiring. And to learn about the Douglas history as well, and sort of the incredible innovation and entrepreneurship that happened here, it inspired me ultimately to pursue entrepreneurship myself. So anyway, I started washing airplanes when I was a kid, and traded washing airplanes in exchange for flying lessons, and ultimately learned to fly and became a flight instructor here senior year of high school. I went to Santa Monica High School, but I used to ditch school to come to the airport and teach people how to fly, which was pretty fun. And then ultimately went to college for aeronautics and started my career in aeronautics. I started as a flight test engineer, certifying airplanes before starting my first company. One of the other things that really, you were asking me earlier about entrepreneurship.
Yep.
I wouldn't have thought to get into entrepreneurship if it wasn't for a really cool experience I had here at the airport, actually. So when I was 14, I started volunteering for Angel Flight West, which is a group of volunteer pilots that fly people in medical and financial need. And there's about 1,000 pilots in the Western U.S. that are volunteers for Angel Flight. They fly about 5,000 missions a year, taking people from outlying areas to city centers that have hospitals for treatment that they need, cancer or whatever. And so twice a week after school, starting when I was 13, I'd go to the Angel Flight office here, and I would volunteer to coordinate missions. At that time, we didn't have the internet. We just had a whiteboard with a list of all the missions. So I would call the pilots on the phone, and, say, "Hey, are you available to take this mission? Are you available?" And 9 times out of 10, people were busy, but every now and again they say, "Yeah, I can do that one." And sometimes I got to ride along with them in the airplane as a co-pilot. I wasn't a rated pilot yet. I was 13, but I got to experience that. And what I learned was that all of these people that were volunteering their time and money and their airplanes to fly these people, almost all of them were entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Very few of them worked for anybody else. And so the light bulb kind of went off in my head and said, okay, if, someday I want to do this, I also maybe need to become an entrepreneur. So I started thinking about different business ideas, and my best friend Cyrus, who I met here at the airport, together we came up with an idea to connect Santa Monica Airport with Catalina Island.
Mm.
We love Catalina Island. We're like, why don't more people get to go there by airplane? So when we were 14, we had an idea to create an airline to connect the airport in Catalina, and we went so far as to go there and do market surveys of all the hotels and all this stuff.
This
and
is
then
14.
Yeah, and then our parents were like, guys, focus on schoolwork, okay? But that was the first idea. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the inspiration story for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about your history with Santa Monica Airport and your vision for this airport. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're thinking here, because I think what we talked about around having multimodal transportation and having this be an innovation center is amazing. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we have a real opportunity now to reimagine the future of this place, and there's so much new technology coming to transportation today. If it's electrification, autonomy, new fuels, all sorts of stuff that are changing transportation in really meaningful ways, making it cleaner, faster, safer, better, land, air, sea, and space. Not just aviation, but in all domains. And it's something I'm really passionate about, because transportation improves quality of life around the world, right? You think about like the countries, the places that have the highest human development index, the best education, all that, they have the best transportation infrastructure. Right? There's some places in the world that are really rich in natural resources, great climate, but have a really disadvantaged economy, and it's usually because they don't have transportation infrastructure. Like I often use the example of of Congo for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Congo is rich in natural resources, great climate, but you can't really trade. Like if you make the best mangoes in the world, you have to sell them to your neighbor. You can't sell them on a global marketplace where people are willing to pay for them. And so this really elevates the human existence. So anyway, I think it's such an important cause. I think Santa Monica has a incredible set of ideals around humanity and environment, and really making the world a better place. We have this great heritage of having done that for a century or more, not just in aviation, but in the arts and so many fields. And I think that the question of what to do with the airport is really a catalyst to bring Santa Monica together again around some common purpose. Mm-hmm. I don't think the city brings its residents together in a common purpose today. Like we're sort of putting out our fires. We have homelessness problems. We have economic problems because of post-COVID downturn in tourism and things like that. But it's time for us to kind of come together around a common purpose. And if it can be innovation and how do we make the world a better place, that would be awesome. And I think the question of this airport can catalyze that sense of purpose. And so anyway, that's sort of the very subjective, touchy-feely stuff. But I think the practical stuff for me is how do we make this a better resource for the whole community? And there's lots that we can do. I mean, I think we can of course make it a much more beautiful place. We need botanical gardens and running trails, mm-hmm. and all kinds of awesome experiences for people to enjoy here. We need more educational opportunities. Expanding the museum so that we can celebrate the past and inspire the future. Theaters and things like that, amphitheaters, places where people can gather and enjoy both educational and entertainment opportunities. And then this question of how do we innovate for the future? I mean, I think more spaces for engineers and artists and entrepreneurs to come together and create meaningful value, right, for the future would be great. And I would really love, again, my passion being transportation technology. How do we make this a living laboratory for the future of transport? Right. We have this huge space. We can really do a lot of things. So, I would love to see a future where people can innovate here, deploy their capabilities, and allow the entire community to benefit from that. And, I think that could be, a sustainable multimodal transit hub, for example, where you have electric aviation and, just think out 50 or 100 years, what new modalities of transit will we have? Hyperloop and, who knows what? Yeah. Maybe some magical hydrogen gondolas or something. Who knows? But like, it would really be a
Space
shame.
elevators.
It'd be a shame to kind of like just say goodbye to all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so a big part of the reason why we're doing these tech talks is really to get people to expand their thinking about what's possible here. And thank you for participating in that, because I think your story with Wing is just so emblematic of the kinds of things that can be created and deployed here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on a few things where one thing I've seen working Google X is you put different groups of innovators together, and that innovation becomes real, right? Because then you start getting ideas, working with different groups and entities, and you feel like, okay, I can use this idea to better what I am working on in this product. So I think what you talked about, having multimodal transportation come here would certainly help in terms of advancing what we think can happen in the future.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I really appreciate that. And I'd love to think a little bit more. I mean, I was sitting down with some of the city staff recently and asking them about what challenges they're facing, and one of them said, one of the biggest problems we have is delivery vans blocking the bike lanes. Like, if you could solve that for me, I'd be happy. I kind of sense like this could maybe help with that. But could you sort of maybe talk to what sorts of packages would be well suited to be delivered in a community like this, and maybe a little bit how would Wing enter a new community like this?
Right. I mean, for us, it is important that we remain a multimodal transportation model, right? So I don't think the drones can carry a refrigerator anytime soon. So if you had any hopes of refrigerators on drones, sorry. But certainly the things that we can carry are going to be things that you want fast and hot and cold if it's an ice cream. And so I think for us it's important that we give you the opportunity space to not do the extra trips, not have the extra Amazon van come to deliver just for you, and take away that the single modal routes that happen at this moment and replace it by a very sustainable option, drones. So recently we have actually, this drone can carry about 1.5 kilograms. We recently launched another drone that can, take up to 5 pounds. So if you look at it from our viewpoint, we see that as an opportunity space where we can fulfill a family's dinner. So like right now, if you are ordering for a family, we might have to send a couple of drones to deliver that, which is still fine. So 70% of our deliveries are done by single drone delivery. So basically one drone can fulfill the order. There's 30% of deliveries that has to be sent by 2 drones. So what we've understood is, like, listening to our customers and partners, now we're able to create the next generation of drones that can carry the 5-pound payload, or 5-pound payload, 2.5 kilogram, that then could suffice for a full family that would need to order their dinners and so on and so forth. So to your point of that's basically what we think about. If you look at Uber Eats or you personally driving to the restaurant to get what you need, or to retail stores, that's where we're able to take cars away, but we will still be part of a multimodal ecosystem.
Yeah, cool. And 2 more questions, and then we'll kind of open it up for you all if you have questions. One, maybe you could just show people how this thing works. Like, how does this actually drop the package?
Yeah, certainly.
And the distance.
Yes, ma'am. So it's 6 miles round trip. So yeah. So basically, if you think about Walmart as an example, right? Like, Walmart stores are generally between 6 to 10 miles of each other. So each Walmart store could be a nest and could basically serve the communities around it. And if you looked at smaller, neighborhood stores or restaurants, it gives them access now to 6 miles worth of customers that they couldn't have in the past. And like I said, from our viewpoint, if there is a need for longer distance, Wing as an engineering company, we will listen to our customers and we will go build that from that viewpoint.
6 mile round trip means you can go out 6 miles and 6 miles back.
Total of 6 months.
Oh, total. So 3 miles out and 3 miles back. Okay.
So I'm wondering what contingency plans. So suppose the delivery cannot be made.
Yep.
For whatever reason. You don't want something to drop out of the sky.
Yep.
So what would then happen? Would it do an emergency landing? Would it have to be picked up? What happens to the package? Because these things all come into play if someone actually wants to use it as a service.
Right. So I mean, this is what we obsess about, because you have a drone fleet of thousands of drones flying, and the drone has to take its decision and take a safe decision. So all of the things that you mentioned are part of the contingency planning, and it's depth by defense. So there's not one thing that happens, but there is plenty of actions that the drone can do, all of it in the vein of making a safe landing that helps the drone get away from people or return back to where it started, so on. So
Is that explicit outlined somewhere, or is it still in progress to work that out?
well, I mean, I think it's certainly explicitly outlined from how we work internally, and it's something that we have to talk with the FAA regulators to provide. But I think it's certainly out there from a regulatory standpoint. We have to have these.
And just to be clear, this is already an FAA approved operation.
Correct.
It is.
Um,
Okay.
So yeah, we've been a drone Part 135 certified operation since 2019. So we were the first one to be approved as air carriers for drone services. So I think this is now, like I said, we've been approved by CASA in Australia. So we fly in Australia quite a bit, FAA in the US, and we are flying in Finland, UK, and in Ireland. So we are also approved by the ESR.
Do you have a percentage of how many actually do fail, or is it, in terms of whatever battery runs out, there's a...
Well, I don't have an accurate percentage, but it's a very, very low percentage, and that's how we can actually cater to needs.
so why don't you show them the package and the
sure.
pill, so you can see how this
I'll come back to you.
how this gets delivered in your yard.
So pretty much this is, and you guys can walk around and see this. This is a mechanical pill, and what you'll see is this looks like a golf ball because it is designed inspiration from a golf ball, and it has some weight on top of it that holds the pill in the correct direction that we want. But basically, the pill comes down, and then a loader who's then loaded from this package hooks this pill onto it, and then it tethers up to the drone. And then there's 2 cams here on the drone, and that holds this package so that it's pretty much locked inside the drone. And when the drone's ready to do a delivery mission, it just basically pops this back, and when it hits the ground, the pill pops out. Just gravity and the way the pill is designed. So it's all, there's no
Totally passive.
Totally passive.
Yeah.
There's no automation that has it.
What's the length of the string? How far does the drone come down?
Right. So the drone is hovering about 20 feet, and then the string comes down to drop it, and then it just goes up. So basically, it's for the pilots out here. Basically, what happens is that the drone comes and hovers 20 feet, and then when it's ready to go, it goes up to about 150 feet, and then transitions to cruise, and then flies back to the nest.
So these nests, you can, for example, just thinking about the Santa Monica scenario, with a 3 mile radius, basically if you had a nest somewhere in the middle of Santa Monica, you could cover the whole city, and you'd have these things, maybe on the roof of a building or something like that.
Yeah, roof of the building, parking lots, have it in top of malls. So like, in Australia, we have it in malls where you have multiple merchants, and you're able to extend the outreach of the mall merchants to much larger areas as well. So I think, generally speaking, these drones, as you can see, are pretty small. It needs a 2x2 area for it to be put. So depending on where you have space, we could actually have it. And then also to your point of, if you had a couple of nests, then you could actually cover a lot more distances because a drone can fly one way. It doesn't have to come back to the original nest, say in the nest 6 miles away, and then continue on with that journey. So I think having this delivery network system of like a drone doesn't have to belong in one nest and could be this party that could go and be in multiple nests is also something that we're working towards.
So just two more questions, and I'll open up for. But safety. I mean, it's now FAA approved.
Correct.
You've obviously had to go through a lot of testing to prove that it's safe enough to fly in the airspace and to fly over people and all of that. Maybe just quickly touch on a couple of the key safety features of the drone design that make it safe.
Yeah, certainly. I think as you can see, you have redundancy on our propulsion system. So if you go see, there's 12 rotors. And then 4 cruise motors. So generally speaking, for us, we look at the drone design to take on a lot of redundancy within the design itself. Also, if you look at the drone's construction, it's foam. So if you go look at it and touch it and feel it, it's just regular foam that is used in your bike helmets. And then the way that the drone's set up is it's kind of like an F1 car. So there's frangible links on the drone. So if it were to get some velocity on it, then the drones will just break away and take the forces with it. So it's kind of built into the system of how the drone is set up, all the way from, like you asked about, contingencies to anything that would later on in the stage of like, if there is an impact, how we would think about an impact for the drone.
Yeah. Cool. And then last question for me, and I'm sure others have questions, is sort of what to expect next year. I mean, we're halfway through 2024, but how do you see the service rolling out, and what's next for Wing?
Yeah. So 2024, we're calling it the year of the drones, and we borrowed from one of the press releases that we had earlier this year, where they're really talking about drones making its appearances everywhere in the U.S., especially in Dallas. So this year we've worked with Walmart, as I noted earlier. So we started the first Walmart site September of last year. We've been growing, and we're at 4 sites. By end of this year, Walmart's looking to do cover 75% of Dallas Fort Worth area with drone delivery service. So that's one way, and then also we worked with DoorDash extensively in Australia. So we're bringing DoorDash to the U.S. So we recently launched DoorDash in Christiansburg, like I mentioned, with Wendy's, and we just recently launched, I think last week, in Dallas with DoorDash in our Frisco Station site. And the cool part about it, and this is something I experienced last week, is that if you open a DoorDash app in the service location and area, you get the option of drone delivery service, along with the 3 other options of car, bike, other things. So it's like very real at this moment of like, you can actually go and pick a drone delivery service, pick where in your front or backyard the drone needs to land, and and then say yes, and then drone's there for you to deliver. So it is something that is that we think in 2025 will be in more locations and more partners, and hopefully in California too.
That's great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. I want to give a big thank you also to the Cloverfield for hosting us. If you didn't already eat breakfast, or come back another time and eat breakfast. But thanks to Cloverfield. Thanks, Kartik and Nicole, for arranging this. We really appreciated you being here and telling us all about Wing.
Yeah, thank you for having us here.
Thank you.